So when we got started, I want to show this video. It's about innovation, and I think thinking about model checking and how we do it is innovative. And again, a lot of the firms I work with who are innovative they're thinking about this stuff. Once you install the plugin to Revit, this is what we get. This is the tool we're going to be looking at, just because you're looking at all these tools. The other tool, the CAD Manager other tool, is way over here to the right. Resolution changed on me. This is the other model checking tool we'll look at later. But these are the two buttons that we use here. So to create or run a rule, it's a pretty simple process. We just hit the check button, and then everything from GSA and above is what's in the box. So we'll dive into this, but I just want to show the general process. So we select the rule that we want to run. We have the ability to choose what we want to run it on. Do we want to run it on the current model? Do we want to run it on the model on any linked models? Or we can run it against models in a folder. So it's very easy to pick models. Another nice thing about Revit Model Review is if you're using Clarity, which is another add-on project, this can be automated to task, so it runs every night, etc. Now, I want to redo this one more time to show you how quickly that this processes a model. So we'll do extended. I just pick what I want to run, hit OK, and it checks the model. This is a very quick process. When we look at the amount of data that we're trying to process, it's very quick. So what happens after we run it, we get this sort of results dialog box. And this is going to be the name of each of the rules that we've created. And this is going to be from the category, and we'll talk about the category later, and then the results of those rules. So when we run it and we look at duplicate elements, for example, and we come down to the bottom of the screen, this is going to show us the results of where we find the duplicates right here. And then if I click on this Items tab, I can go into deeper, and it's going to show me the actual items that are duplicates. Now, the one good thing and bad thing about this system is if you see this little like magic wand kind of thingamabob right here, that's sort of the magic wand. And if I click it, it will automatically fix the issue. We're going to talk about creating the rules. At my company, we never use this button, because here's why. If we look at my duplicate elements we got here, so we have all these duplicate items. When I click that fix the button, I have no idea which one it's going to keep. So I don't like taking that kind of chance. So I actually like to kind of find the issue, see what it is, and then I myself will go in, or somebody else will go in and look at the issue. Another nice feature about this particular tool is I can go into Revit and work while I have the results up. And sometimes I can actually click on an item that's showing me where the issue is, and it will find a view to show me that particular item. It's really hit or miss. It's Revit, so sometimes it'll find the item, sometimes it won't, but this is a good way to do it. So again, I can easily come in and go down and look at each one of the issues that we have and see the results. Manage tab does. And it's a simple program, but there's a lot going on here. So under the File tab is going to be all these predefined tools. Now these items below AU Dubai are ones I've created, but everything above GSA is built into the system. So I'm just going to pick on this project standards right here, minimum, and it's going to list the rules that we have within the system. So this first tab down here at the bottom is the basic info. So this is just going to be what are you creating. It's going to be you name it. This is the category. We'll talk about the category in a second. And this is the status. So if I hit enabled, that means this rule is going to be run. You can run it. This allow correction button, this is the one that I always turn off. But you have to make your own decisions. This is going to give you the magic wand if it's applicable. And you can click it and it'll automatically fix it. This works great, for example, if we're doing a text is uppercase. So if your firm standard is everything has to be uppercase, and Ali is not turning his cap locks on and he's typing, you can run this check. This is one of those things where you may want to have the because we're just going from lowercase to uppercase. So that's what that is. The Details tab is where the heart of this tool is, and this is where things can get a little odd. But we'll go change the font style here.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Are these rules, they are default rules, or you have to?
These are the default rules.
Default rules.
Yes. And you have the ability to, if you want to get rid of, so for example, if we don't care about room names being uppercase, we can come in here to this check and hit remove and remove it. So you have the ability to build your own rule set from the standard rules.
If you want to create your own rule, that will involve some programming?
No. Well, we'll get to that. Yes and no. We'll get to that. We have the ability to create our own rules, and then there is an API behind the system that will allow you to take it even further. So for example, there is a rule that lets you check fire-rated walls to make sure fire-rated walls and doors correspond correctly. That is not built into the system, but Autodesk has provided a sample rule for that to show you how the API behind that works so you can develop your own. I don't do any of that. I'm not a developer. I'm not that smart. But there are people like Amar back there, wherever he went and hid. You know, he's smart enough to do that. There he is. So that's something you can do. So if we look, let me go back to the font style. So how this works is each of these, this detail tab is going to be completely different for every rule set that we select. So if we go to text size, maybe dim style, we'll have some different options that show up for each of these different types of rules. So the system is going to present you with the options that are applicable to what you're working on. So in this particular case, I want to look at the text font style. And what it's saying right here is we're looking for this parameter. This built-in is a built-in Revit parameter. And I'm looking for the text font. And what I want to do is, what it's asking me to do is, it must exist. So I'm saying in the system that the text font style must exist. If we're going to put text in, it has to be there. And I want everything in the model to match up with Arial. So when I run this rule, if I have text that is using a different font style, like we'll go back to my city blueprint, for example. If I only use a city blueprint or Arial black or Arial italic, it's going to flag it up as an error. So right here, if I wanted to put in a different font style, I could put in Arial black, for example. And then the system would check, and if it found any text styles that weren't Arial black, it's going to flag that as an error. And so then all I do is I hit save, and I save it, and now I can then go back into the system and hit check and rerun that, and that'll process it. So again, anything that's not Arial black, it's going to flag it as an error.
So can it also convert that to automatically to the desired font?
It can. So if we let me go back to manage.
Define another rule over here.
Yes, if I have this allow correction checked, it'll automatically fix it. Any questions so far?
Is it case sensitive?
Yes, it is sensitive, yeah. Anything else? So this is for loading predefined rules right here. So we've already created a rule set. It has a bunch of items in it. I can come in here, I can make these modifications. If I want to add a rule to this, then we're going to go to the check tab. So the check tab, if I hit add, is going to bring me up a predefined list of the different categories of rules that we can check from. So for example, some of these are pretty much, you click it, it's just going to add. So views with hidden elements. When I click on that, if I go to my detail elements, I can come here and check what type of views I want it to check, but the settings behind that, what's hidden, what's not, that's automatically done. So if I only wanted to check floor plans, I can just click floor plans, and it's only going to look at the model with floor plans that have hidden objects in it. So why is this important? I may have gotten into the model, and I use my little hide objects in Revit. I hid a couple doors because I wanted to mess with Ollie. And I want to check this because when I print, I want to make sure that I haven't temporarily hidden something, and I print, and all of a sudden, we have some issues. So most of the time I find in the rules that we're doing, we're looking at the parameter requirements rule. So what this allows us to do is to actually look at the parameters and see what's there, what's not there. So let me open up my demo rule set here. That's not the one I want. We'll just create a new one. So we're going to create a new rule, and I'm going to use the parameter requirements. And what we want to do is we want to look for walls, and we want to check their type name to make sure that it has ext, for example, in it. So I can see if all my walls that have a Revit function of exterior have the type name has exterior in it. So is everybody familiar with the Revit parameter function? So let me just go pick a wall here. So within Revit, this is a way that, again, a way to help quantify your model. When I bring up my type properties of a wall, there is a function right there, and that's going to say what type of wall it is. So it's an interior wall, foundation wall, etc. Hopefully this is set correctly. It should be set correctly. And I can use this to make sure that my wall naming is correct. Is everyone with me why I'm doing it this way? I tend to use this with firms and projects who may have not cleaned their library because the assembly code value may or may not be correct. And so right here I'm using a uniclass value in the assembly code. I've used another tool to update this. We're in the Middle East, or Europe, etc. So by default, Revit uses uniformat for the assembly code. And probably, is anybody using uniformat here? You guys are, okay. 2, wow. Okay, so uniformat outside the US is not really used that much. But uniclass is used all the way, a lot. So we recommend people update their library for uniclass. And I'm going to show another tool that makes it a lot easier than trying to fight with Revit to switch from uniformat to uniclass within the system. But so if you haven't set a good a value here, if you are just leaving what Revit comes out of the box, this value may or may not be correct. So that's why I like the wall function, because that's usually a better indicator that things are working correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my add-ins and manage. And I'm going to create a new check. And it's going to be a parameter requirement check. And I'm just going to say, look for exterior walls. We can name this whatever we want. Now I'm going to remove allow correction. And if I want to put some notes in here about the rule, why I'm doing this, I can fill that out. This is, now I'm going to go to the details section of this. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is going to be all the different element types that Revit has available. So I can come in here and I can manually pick the element and try to fill this out, but the software developers have made it easier for a fat, lazy guy like myself. I can hit this Pick Elements button, and it's going to allow me to pick an element in the model to use as a reference, a template for what I want to search for. So I'm going to click on this exterior wall right here, and then it's going to bring up all the parameter data available in the model. And I want to show you this. So the column that you're going to want to look at is this name, not the internal name. So this is what, if you're an API developer or programmer, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to look at. If you're a Revit user, this is what we're used to seeing. So I'm going to sort it by name, and then I'm going to come down here and see where it says function, and I'm going to click on this. This is a little gotcha that I wish Autodesk would fix, and I know they're not, is see this where it says text value, where it says exterior? If we type in the system, I'll go back to the next dialog box. If I say I want to look for items with a function of exterior, this rule is not going to work. The reason why it's not going to work is because Revit Model Review is not looking for that value. It's looking for this value. So one of the one of the deficiencies with this tool is if I want to check a model, for example, work sets. If I want to run it against my model and make sure my model has X number of work sets, the correct one, like shell, core, blah, 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 I can't do it with this system. And the reason why is if I go down and look at work sets, here's the work set name that this object is on. It's on shell, but that's 553. The problem is if I open up another model and I have another model that has a work set called shell, it's not going to be 553. It's going to be some other random number because this is sort of, it's like a Revit element ID. It's generated within the product, within that particular project file. So I can't, the bad thing about this tool is if I want to always make sure that the team is using the same work sets on the project, you literally have to open the project file up and actually query the numbers to make sure that they're going to work. So it's one of the unfortunate deficiencies of the tool. So if going back to this real quick, if you were going to fill this out manually, and I came down here and I typed in function, we'll just find it. And I type in my value here, exterior, it's not going to work. Because again, if we go back and look at my element selection item, function is not, what it's calling exterior is not there. It's 1. So I'm going to select it, hit that, and as you can see here, it put in the value of 1. So this is the case with a lot of items, especially if you're going to do work set checking. So if we wanted to check, exterior walls are on that work set shell, this is just a gotcha. Make sure you use this pick element options to choose. And then,
Confusion over here.
yes.
1 is signifying, or you are assigning a code to exterior 1, interior 2 or something?
This is a built-in value, so let me pull this back up here. Rather than Revit, the Revit database referring to exterior has our text shows right here. The Revit internal database refers it to 1. So if it's interior, it may be 0. If it's foundation, it may be 5. I don't know what it's going to be. So that's why we have to query the database and see what that value is going to be. These are fixed. By the way, function is fixed, so interior is always going to be the certain, I don't know what they are by heart. But it's always, I think a good workflow is to use the pick element because that's going to tell you the correct values.
So that means you make your list of whatever items you want to check and create a list of values, default values Revit creates.
Yes, but the important thing is if I'm going to check this value, so for example, this is an interior wall and I'm going to select it. I want to make sure whatever object I'm picking on to query the value is correct itself. So I don't want to come down here and if this function is wrong and use that as a value. You want to make sure that when you're setting this up, you're picking an object that's correct so you know what the correct value should be within the system. So this is where it takes a little bit of time to come into the system and set these up. So I'm going to pick this. I just want to come down again just to make sure, hit function. And that puts it in right there. So now if I save this, we'll just call it, I'm just going to overwrite my one I called demo or tests. And then I come and run it. What it did now is it's telling me of all the elements it checked, these items did not have a function of exterior or 1 within the database. And this is probably correct because I have a bunch of interior walls that probably have an interior function of interior or foundation, etc. So you with me so far? To dig a little deeper into this dialog that we're showing right here, the filter object allows me to filter certain items. So for example, if I want to look at walls but only look at certain walls, I can use the filter to create different to help me narrow down my search set. The reason why I want to narrow down my search set is when I hit the check file, it's fewer items it has to check, and so it's faster for it to run. The same goes with conditions. I've never used these myself, but and there's no example that Autodesk provides, but if you want to use a process, that's what this is for, but I've never used it. Fail message this is the message that's going to be presented to the user when it fails. So that's that little item we saw there. This is HTML, so you can format it any way you like. And then the pass message is just what you want it to be when it's passed. So any of this can be filled out any way that you like.
Could you please explain filter thing again?
So filtering. So sometimes I may want to first, instead of in this detail information, we'll go back to my wall example. Excuse me, we'll just do a new check. So filter, so here right now I'm checking the walls. I'm going to check walls for a certain value. I want to make sure that it's on the shell work set, for example. And I want to make sure that it has a type name of ext. One of the things I may want to do is first filter by the Revit parameter. So rather than, I can tell the system I want to come in here and I want it to look for the Revit function. Now I want to look at the type name. I only want my type name to, I want to find me anything that doesn't have ext, for example, in my type name. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a selection set first of these are the items I want to look at, and then just check these particular items. I don't have to use the filter. I can check the whole entire Revit database all at once, but if I filter, I keep my runtime down to the minimum amount. The family filter here, again, if it's a rule that's going to affect a family, and I know you're probably saying, well, wall is a family. It's a system family, so the checker looks at system families different than Revit families. So if I'm going to look at a door, I would want to do the family filter rather than the filter. So all these filters do is just allow you to limit the selection set and make it easier for you to check, make it run faster.
I just want the measure point.
What? I'm sorry. What?
I want the magic wand. I like it.
No magic wand for you. So any questions about this? Because I'm running out of time, and I got a bunch of other tools. So, yes?
Is there a way that you can group out all those groups?
You can't group them. You can change the order. So I can select them and I can move them up and down, but I can't group them. If you want to group them, what you do is you save it as a different name. So for example, maybe I just want to look at parameters. You save those rules separately, and then when we'll go to this run. So your grouping would be the file name that you put everything in, and then you run them separately. So this is Bim Standards. It's cloud-based. Everything runs within a browser. There's no software to install. There's an add-in within Revit that gets installed, but everything runs off the browser. So when we click on a project, this is like your project's landing page. So all your projects are listed. If I want to look at a particular project, I can just click in it. And then that's going to bring up, this is the project landing page now. So all the models in the project are listed. So we can see all that information here. But as I mentioned before, this is alpha software. So it's not, nobody's buying it right now. It is what it is. If I come in and click on a couple of these buttons, just clicking real loud so you can see if I want to assign tasks, nothing happens because the functionality hasn't been built out yet. Right now, their whole focus is not necessarily assigning tasks. The idea is that I would have the ability to assign a task to somebody and say, you fix this, you look at this. What they're focused on right now is building out the rules engine. So how can we make this very easy and simple to assign rules to a model? And by and far, I think this at least is half the time to set up a project than Revit model review. I think it's at least half the time. To run a rule, to check it, we just hit this run analysis if the buttons are all complete. We hit run. It's going to let me pick which rules I want to check. So this is similar to Revit model review where I could choose which rule set I wanted to run, but I can run a bunch at one time. So this is my groupings, if you will, how I'm going to group my rules. So if I don't want to run one, I can uncheck it and click the button to run my analysis. And it's not really showing up on the screen, but this little arrow flickers a little bit and shows you that that rule is being processed and the next one, etc. And then when I want to look at the results, I just click the View Analysis. So a couple things happen. I have a lightweight model viewer now. So this model viewer, this is a real key to this tool, is because the people that we're working with who are consuming this data outside of the design firm are not Revit users. They have no idea. They don't know how to create views in Revit. This is a web-based tool. It's very easy to navigate. Anybody can do it. It's like a game engine. And then I can click over here on the left. So like this ensure duals have a unique mark. Right now it says 7 of 73 we have issues with. And so when I click the drop-down button, I now can see which objects I have compliance issues with. And if I click on it, and the internet's a little slow, it's going to take a minute, but it'll pull up and show me that particular object in the model. So I'm going to go back to my models page. Creating a rule is pretty easy with this system. We go to the Analysis tab. And like our other system, we have a bunch of predefined rules that we can choose from. So these are what we're going to see over here. So if I look at Bim Standards, we can create the Bim Standards. The nice thing about this is if you do repetitive work with a client, just like in Revit Model Review, we can create, say it's DMCC, we can create a standard check for their standards, and then every project we have, we just got to click it and say, add it to these models. If I want to create a rule from scratch, I can hit this Add Rules button. And then this is going to come in a little more detail, just like within Revit Model Review, we can start to choose the rule we want to add and then start to refine the settings for that. So this is very quick, it's very fast. And I actually, again, this is alpha software. If this, hopefully first of the year, this will be built up enough where our guys will actually quit using Revit Model Review because this is just faster and easier to use. So any questions on this?
Is this only for Revit?
Today, this is only for Revit. Their engine is just for Revit, but they have developers who are working to add Graphisoft, Bentley, AutoCAD, etc. So this system is set up to start accepting other products. This company has been around, I think, for about 2 years, and they just released this about 4 months ago for alpha customers to start checking. So the great thing about this product is get in and on it now, and you can help shape what you want. So for example, one of my issues was I want to check work sets. And they're like, that's a great idea, and it's on their development list. So the next version of this, it's going to have that functionality in there. So, and the nice thing about this is the software is installed automatically. So when there's a new version of it, you don't even know because it's on the cloud. It's automatically uploaded for you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You said something about you can push certain parameters to fix things
Yes.
on the cloud. Do you have to take your central model offline while that's happening, or does it just sync back to the central model?
I'll show that in another piece of software because it works the exact same. Essentially what it's going to do, if I came in here and I changed some parameter data, like door mark numbers, when I sync back to the Revit Revit model, it's going to look for the Revit element ID with it up in the cloud, and it's going to see if that same Revit element ID is in the model. And if it is, the data gets pushed down and replaced.
So that's effectively acting like a local, its own local.
Sort of, yes. Yep. So if there's a place for that data to go down to the Revit model, the data goes. If there's not, there's no place for it to go.
So every time you have to upload the fresh model, or it just syncs with only the changes?
You have the ability to choose what you want to come down, so you can take the entire database and replace everything in the Revit model, or you have the ability to pick and choose what information you want. So I just want door mark numbers to go down. It'll just go down.
Okay. So
Yep.
if you choose to upload the whole model, the history from the previous check, would it be gone? Or?
No, the history from the previous check is still there. I'm going to show another piece of software, and I may skip to that because we're running out of time rather than talking about this other tool. But all these cloud-based tools that are coming out, versioning is very important. So you don't see it, this model only has one version of it, but every time you upload a model to the system, it's a separate database.
Okay. Edit copy paste.
Yes, and the reason is, so the people who made this software, some of them came from the people who made Assemble. So we'll talk about Assemble next. So it keeps a separate and distinct database from each version of the model. So if you need to go back and look at the DD1 model, even though DD2 is current, you can go back and look at the DD1 model.
When it says federated model, you have to join it together, then post it, or can you do it there? Can you like bring them together?
So on this particular, where they're at today, when you upload the architectural model, you upload the structural model, etc. Then you have to do a second upload to create the federated model. They're going to fix that. Again, the developers here were some of the same developers over on this piece of software. So this piece of software has been fixed. The other one hasn't yet. So, any other questions? Nope. Okay, so the next piece of software I want to talk about is Assemble, and I'm going to skip the PowerPoints. So Assemble is another cloud-based system, and just full disclosure, in addition to the consulting company, at our consulting company, we use this heavily. We probably use this more than Navisworks in all of our projects. So I am also a customer success manager with Assemble. So I do, if they have a customer that needs some workflow process training with this, I'm involved in that. So just full disclosure. So I'm really passionate about the software, so they'll pay me at the same time. So Assemble is a cloud-based tool, and just like the other tool, there is a plugin for it that allows us to publish models to the cloud and then sync data back. So it's going to be very similar to Bim Assure. Assemble by itself is not a model checking platform. It's really this tool is a data management platform. So if I go and let's click on this project right here. Actually, let me go click on this fitness center. So this is a real project that one of my owner clients is allowing me to use for demos. It's a fitness center, a gymnasium, but the owner is really proud of his building. So this is costing as much as a hospital per square meter. I mean, it's in US dollars, it's $500 a square foot, and that's a typical hospital. There's no drywall in any of the public spaces. It's all Brazilian railroads, and this is a university. So it's a public university, and anyways. So with this system, it's a data management platform, and what they mean by that is it allows you to access and manipulate the data. 90% of their customers are quantity surveyors. So this tool is meant to be used by the non-BIM user, and the learning curve is about 90 minutes. But it allows them, whatever's in the model, a non-Revit user can get to it and can change the data. Why we use this tool, we use it for a number of reasons. It can be as a owner's representative or a representative of the contractor. We may not get models all the time. Maybe the designer is only going to publish them to the system, so we may not have access to them. but we may want to create views, we may want to look at things. Another thing we want to do, this is very important, is look at what has changed within the model. So like PMs, project executives love this tool because they give a task to Sean to model something, and Sean's going to say, it's going to take me 3 days to perform this task. Most project managers have no idea what Sean is doing or how long it's going to take Sean to do something. So with the Show Changes button, what it allows us to do is see what's changed in the model from one version to the next. And it does it very quickly. So as you can see, so what it does is it allows us to see what's been added, removed, a Revit type change, so that's like a 2x2 ceiling to a 2x4 or something like that. Quantity changes or anything that's a type and quantity change. And another thing about the system is, and because of the resolution, this is really bad to see, we can pick what version of the model we want to see against whatever version. So this is the current version of the model, and this is the previous version. So now we have a real quick and fast method of seeing what's changed. We could do this in Navisworks, we can do it in Celibri, but you guys saw how quickly that worked. I mean, I can change the version right here and hit update, and I can quickly see what's been changed. So from an understanding of what's happening in the project, this is a very powerful tool. I also have the ability with this tool I'll pull this up, to see the quantity and what objects have actually changed. So we're looking at ceilings right now, we're seeing the quantity information, and any parameters that are available within Revit, I can look at that data to see what's been changed. So let me just go back to another reason we use this is to see, again, how are things being modeled. So these are all views that have been saved of the project. And don't think of the view as a camera view. This is more of a schedule view. This is just a graphical representation of what's showing. But I might want to see, for example, walls. Let me go to an Autodesk sample project that's a little better. I want to look at walls. So we talked about the function of the wall. Is it interior? Is it exterior? So knowing if the model is correct is very important. So I'm going to come down here, and I think we have a wall. We'll look at this one, walls exterior. I think it's foundation walls is what I wanted. But so now it's going to create a view, and it's going to look at those Revit parameters, in this particular case, the Revit function, and show me just walls that are exterior. And so now I can look at this and make a decision. This is not the one I wanted to pull up, though. I wanted foundation, sorry.
Is it creating these views automatically?
Once the view has been created, it's automatic, but initially you have to create the view. And I'll show you how you do that. It's basically using a filter. But the nice thing about the system is, the reason why I like this is I can copy views from one project to another. So for example, I want to look at walls that are foundation. That's going to be typical probably on every project I want to look at. So I can just copy this to the next project and it's good to go. So as you can see here, this is something Sean has worked on. Not, but, and these are just supposed to be foundation walls. So right off the bat, I can see that this is probably not correct. I'm going to close this here. I don't think these are foundation walls. So with this system, we have this property palette here, and if I click on a wall or any object, it's going to expose the Revit properties, everything that's there. Built-in parameter, a regular Revit parameter, a project parameter, a shared parameter, it's all going to be listed within the system. It's all presented here. And we talked about the ability to make changes to data. So it's a little hard to see, but these items here that are lighter gray within our system and the other system that you saw, Bim Standards, we can't make changes to those. These are like a Revit calculated value. These are something that may affect the size of the object. But these other items where they're like, it's like white comments, geometry hint, we'll go to type parameters. Where it's white to the right of it, I have the ability to make that change within the system. So I can come to function, wherever it's at, Did I pass it? Function right there. So I can come to the system and I now can just select this and hit save. And now that's been updated within the system. So I can now publish this back down to the Revit model and then rerun my checks. Now,
That's an important part.
Yeah.
So with one selection, has it changed for all walls, or you have to select wall by wall or by window?
this is because it's a type parameter, it's going to be all of those walls that are of the same type. No, so the question is, can I do this in Revit? I can absolutely do this in Revit. But I think this, for me, I'm fat and lazy, as you can tell. The shirt's too small. And this was the largest one they had. I want to do something that's quick and easier. So if I was to do this in Revit, I have to create the view, I have to do it. I think it's just a little easier here for me to do. I don't have to open up Revit. So certain fixes, this is a lot easier. And the great thing about it is, I know there's probably some people in the room who don't use Revit a lot. I'm thinking there's no way I'm going to do this, but they can fix this stuff. Do we see a lot of it getting fixed like this, project managers? Not a lot, but I mean, like some people are going to want to get into the model and say, no, that's not what I want. Where this really comes into effect is when it comes to handover deliverables, like BIM to FM deliverables. So our company, we've done probably 250 BIM to FM projects. We don't do a single bit of data entry in Revit, and I would never do that in my life. Because Revit, it's one cell at a time. You know, we go over to Revit, I click on my wall, I got to bring up my parameters, and I can type it in there. I can make a schedule, it's one at a time. Now there's tools we can buy that allow us to export out to Excel. We can do that data entry in Excel, but I can do that with Assemble. So I'm already doing other things with Assemble. I can export out all my data to Excel, do that data population, bring it back into Assemble, and then push it back down into the Revit model. Just like BIM Assure, it's going to use that Revit element ID. So if I put in data for this wall right here, and this wall is gone within the model, then the data just disappears. There's no place for it to go.
So as a good practice, do you send all those changes in the properties back to architects, or their model is still going to remain crap because they're showing walls as a foundation wall?
Well, that's a very good question. We see more and more, because this is also a collaborative tool. Everybody in the project team has access to it. Initially, most designers, and they should be, are very, very skeptical about, do I want the contractor making changes in the system and putting it in my model? And every design firm in the world should say, heck no. I mean, there's contractual issues, but the nice thing about the system is it allows anyone, if you're going to push it back directly into the model, they can see the data that's going into the model. And literally, if they only want to bring across comments or this wall function, that's the only thing that can get pushed down into the model. The designer is going to control what gets pushed down, when they get it pushed down. Now, if the contractor gets the model, and, you know, Ollie sends the contractor the model, the contractor is going to push down a whole lot of other data. But this system allows you to choose what data, down to the single parameter, what you want to pull back down into the model.
Is there any kind of permission to those who can control the model?
Today, there's not. So you have an administrator user access. So that means that you can create projects. That means you can create these new cards up here, and you can add users to the project.
But whoever is added to the project can access and can change.
Can change. Yeah. Sometime in the first quarter of 2016, they're going to have a read-only user. So that, like, I can, Sean doesn't trust me with anything. So Sean's going to give me read-only access so I can come and look at the model, but I can't make any changes. And then the regular user can edit the data. They just can't create new projects and add users.
So there's an audit trail of who's made what changes?
There is an audit trail. It's not exposed. You have to go to the company and say, this looks funky. Can you tell us who did what? But when we talked about the versioning, let me pull up another model. Let's just go back to that fitness center. Every time you publish a model to the system, it gets uploaded. It's a slow connection, so like where you see this version 17, that means 17 versions of the model have been published. The current version is always the version that pops up, but if I want to look at a previous version, I can make that active, and it's going to show me the previous version of the model. So again, one of the things we use this for is sort of like pre-processing. We'll open the models up, we'll look at them, we'll create those views, are things modeled correctly, and we'll fix them right there before we start doing some of our pre-processing, because it's a little easier to create a view really quickly and assemble rather than trying to get the architect to create some specific views for us to look at. It's a little easier for us to do it. So we can sort of control our own destiny here. And this is a lot more friendly than Revit. Literally the learning curve on this is 90 minutes. The training is 90 minutes. And I told somebody I was going to show them how we create a rule. So a view, I think that was somebody, sorry.
Alert to the team if somebody's changed something?
Yes, there is an alert that gets published. So the views are controlled by just visibility settings. So that's what we're going to see here. So right now, it's a filter, like we've seen in the other tools. I want to look at with the category name of walls. So just show me things that are walls. And then I just want to see walls that have a function of an interior. That's how the views create. So this is the most difficult part of the system to learn. And it's the most difficult for non-Revit users because they got to get familiar with Revit parameters. So where do I find this? How do if you didn't know Revit and you wanted to figure out what are interior walls and exterior walls, how is somebody going to do that? So we know it's a function, but if they never use Revit, they don't know the parameters, they're not going to function. So this is the hardest part of the system to learn. And it's just a matter of learning that click the object, go look at the properties, and you can see it here. Another nice thing about the system is it's really customizable in terms of the data that you want to see. So again, here we're looking at walls and we're seeing some basic information here, but if there's a Revit parameter we want to see, we can come in here. So if we want to look at fire rating, we can click on the fire rating. If we're doing something related to Kobe and we want to see how is the Kobe data entry process going, we can add those. I'm just adding a bunch of stuff here. We can see that data, and so I can put that in my list. I can change the sort order of it, and that data is applied. And so now that information is available to me. So,
Kobe.
Kobe.
So do you get the model from consultant with Kobe data entered, or you enter it yourself? Or I
So-
just want to see that how you check the Kobe data in the model.
So how we do it is we don't follow the Kobe process from start to finish, whether it's the UK. We don't follow the UK or the US Kobe standard. My personal opinion is, and if you follow that, if an owner requires somebody to follow that, you're going to bankrupt that project, because those data drops, all that requires a ton of time and effort. That's my opinion. Bill East is the guy who leads that group in North America, and he hates me. But it'll bankrupt a project. I mean, there's so much effort required. So what we do is we create very specific views like this. You see, walls, interiors. We create very specific views for the trade, the subcontractor. So the guy who's putting in the HVAC, we create these very specific views that have just the fields that they have to populate. So we create these, and then we export that data out to Excel. We give them those Excel spreadsheets and say, fill these out. But we don't say, have Dawn, your engineer, your HVAC engineer, populate this stuff, because it's just data entry. We say, go have your administrative assistant go track down make, model, serial number, et cetera, and have them fill out that spreadsheet. And then we import that data back there, because a lot of Kobe, I don't need to tie up an engineer's time to tell me when the item was installed. just anybody who can use Excel can fill in that information. So save yourself time, effort, and money.
Historically, that should be the part of FM, and then while you are doing the as-built model, the Pro data should be entered.
Yes.
We are doing the latest project for FIFA at stadiums, and clients are expecting consultants to enter the Pro data in the model while developing, going through the design stages. So some in that table, some has to be entered by the contractor or facilities manager, but lots of data has to be entered by consultants.
Yeah, when we do it, there's a lot of different reasons. When we do it, our consulting company is involved. We don't actually include the design firm in any of the process. And there's a couple reasons. The designers, the architects, are only providing a few pieces of information. Room name, room number, that's already in the model. But every design firm we've ever dealt with wants more money to provide that data. So we eliminate them from the equation because the data is already being provided. So in terms of the other information, we just put a scope of work together of who's, when are you putting in, make, model, serial number. We do sort of a data drop process. So when they order the equipment, we do start to ask them to fill in that initial piece of information so it can start to show up in the model. So at least the owners can start to see what data is in there. But again, installation date, they're not going to know that till it's physically installed. So we wait until that particular time. And I would say 90% of our projects, we have not had a single, on the contractor side, we've never had a contractor ask for more money, and we've only had a few subcontractors ask for more money because we're streamlining the process. We're not asking for anybody to.
Yes, I think BIM is to blame because BIM is increasing the expectation from the clients. They think that, okay, while consultants are doing the BIM, they should be. So it's all goes to them.
Yeah, we just
Changing the expectations.
yeah, we just eliminate the designers from the process because Ollie's an architect. Ollie has no Sean, you're structural, but the mechanical designer probably doesn't know the serial number of the piece of equipment. They may not know the make because there's somebody else who's ordering that. So that's why they can provide, this much information of this much information that's required. So.
The example you showed before with the incorrect foundation walls.
Yes.
Can you do the same thing for the work sets in this program?
No, work sets is one of the items that will not allow you to reassign it.
But can you check them to see?
You can't check them. We can create a view that just shows us the work sets. So any questions on Assemble?
How does it work for LOD checking?
So it will do LOD checking. Is everybody familiar with Glue, Autodesk Glue? So have you paid, on the owner side, have you paid for the LOD checking add-in to Glue? Okay. So they do have it, but you got to pay extra. Welcome to Autodesk. Cha-ching. So LOD checking. So here's the problem with this tool and Glue. To do LOD checking, it's all parameter based. And if we knew that the owner requirement was level 300 or level 400, the day we started the project, we put in 300 or 400 for everything, and we were done with it from day one. It did not matter. It's just a parameter. So we just put in a value and walked away.
But sometimes it is it's a geometry as well, which usually.
You're exactly right. The geometry really defines the LOD, but the way these checkers work, it's not going to know this podium right here is 400 or 300. The current technology doesn't allow us to check the geometry. The way that Assemble works and the way that Glue works is it looks at a parameter that we've created within Revit. I have said that this particular door is I could say it's a level 7,000. Nobody's going to know any better. And then within Assemble, I'll just show you Assemble's way of doing it, and it's pretty much the same way as Glue. There's a document that you put in the required LOD. So that would be where they require, this one doesn't have it, but I put in the required LOD. So I say the required LOD is 400. And then the system compares the two. So my door's at LOD 7,000, the requirement is 400, I passed. Because it's just checking the parameters. So that's the current state of automated LOD checking. So to answer your question, it has the functionality, but in my personal opinion, it's worthless because I can put 7,000 for everything and walk away, and who's going to know better?
I don't think we need to check this parameter or here parameter, but when I say LOD, for example, 300, I need to check set of parameters that they exist and they're within certain range. This is what I can check. This.
Yes.
The side parameter.
Well, for parameter data, it's very easy. We can do those checks very easy. It's the geometry, and like, you know, a couple of people I picked on and Adine, you know, we worked as a designer, worked on a project in another country where there was an LOD requirement for fire extinguishers. Actually, Autodesk wrote it. So it said a fire extinguisher. And it's not something we're not going to have it fabricated. You know, the contractor's going to go buy 10,000 of these things. But the Autodesk requirement said, at this stage of the project, this is what the fire extinguisher needs to look at. At this stage of the project, and Adine's laughing at me, but it literally said, at this stage of the project, the fire extinguisher needs to look like this, and it needs to look like this, etc. Which is, so it can't do that kind of checking. So she's laughing still, because it was, Autodesk did that, and they were very proud of their work. Wouldn't you say that, Adine? Oh, and another nice thing about this system here is for all you who are not using Uniformat, within this system, we can change this to another structure. Yeah, so we can change it to, Uniclass. So if I hit this open, and it takes a little bit because Uniclass 2015 is a huge database. So it'll load it into the system.
But will it not get confused? Because
Nope.
some of the components, they are defined for Uniformat, but they're not defined for Uniclass.
Well, that's a whole different topic. But what this system allows us to do is far easier than trying to mess with Revit and potentially crashing Revit over and over, is we can come in and then go to our elements and change their assembly code. So change it from Uniformat to Uniclass, and then I can push that data back down into my Revit model. So a lot of our clients who are doing specs from the model, they'll actually make those changes with an assemble, push it here. Anybody who's using Synchro or Vico software, is there any Vico people? So there's a lot of data entry, if you will, data conditioning gets done in Assemble because it's an easier data management platform than Vico or Synchro. So if I come back here and click on this, it's updating right now. Those are what those little bars up right there. So now the system has Uniclass loaded into it. And it doesn't have to be, it could be something, you know, Pat Davis homegrown coding system that nobody likes, system 4.0. So when I hit done, if I go into my model now and I pick on an object, slow. So if I pick on an object and I go to my properties, I can go to my assembly code. Where is it? Right here. It's not refreshing for some reason. Just refresh it one time. And then I can make that assignment now to be Uniclass rather than Uniformat or CSI or some other system.
Someone has already done their homework that this Uniclass code is...
No, you have to manually make the assignment. So Oliver has to come in and go to that door and then go within our system, the assemble system, and say, this should be this assignment. It doesn't automatically do the mapping. Now, Bim Assure will automatically do that mapping for you. There is the project mapping piece right here. It does allow you to do that mapping. Assemble does not. It's funny, you know, we're trying to do this model checking, and we're using Revit, we're using Navisworks probably. Now we're adding 3 other tools to do the checking, so we keep adding tools, and so. Did I pass it? There we go. Well, it does work. We do it all the time. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't work on that, but I can come in here and change the system, hit select, save it, and then push it back down to the Revit model.
Lots of work there.
Well, the great thing is that it's not a lot of work. You have to do it one time. And from a BIM model checking, this is very important for a lot of reasons, because now I can use that unit class value, because it's properly set. I can use that to start doing my checks. Does this have, you know, is in an exterior wall, is an exterior enclosure, I can start to use it for that. But I only have to do it one time. Even, I make it once, I push that down to my Revit model, the Revit model's been updated. So now, as I work over and over again, the data's been changed. So you know, this is a data management platform. So if you're interested in looking at Assemble, because we're running out of time. Let's see, that's, we're just, say that one more time.
In Revit, if you've got a family and you don't have any unit class number to it, is there a tool that can easily do that? Or will you take the model into here, do it and push it back?
Assemble will do that. You could do it with, if you didn't want to buy Assemble, you could buy, there's a number of Revit to Excel, Excel to Revit tools that are available. You could also do it that way. What we see a lot of people doing, this is the guy you want to contact about Assemble. In that particular case, what's nice if you have a company that's proactive and really wants to do BIM well, not just Hollywood BIM is what I like to call it. You know, let's just put some really cool marketing stuff up there. Look what we're doing. We come to the presentations. We bring the A team. You know, this is what we're going to do on your project, and then the project starts, and they hire some guy that's on the corner. Here's your BIM manager. You know, it's Hollywood BIM. But the nice thing about some of those tools like that, you know, Revit to Excel, if you have a progressive, they'll fix their libraries one time. So they may, like Sean's the structural. Sean on a project will start updating his library so it is correct. And at the end of the project, they extract all that content and put it into their library. And so it's good. But the firms that do that are fewer and far between. I don't.
Even lower version of Revit models also can be used.
Yep. So the other tool, I don't think we're going to get to Celibri because we only got 10 minutes. But the one tool I want to talk about, I don't use this tool. We just don't use it. Is CAD Microsystems, and there's a couple reasons why we don't use it. But this is the tool that Autodesk. This is a U.S. reseller, and Autodesk is funding this development. They created a new model checking tool. So it's somewhat similar to the Autodesk tool. A couple differences. So this is a free tool as well. You can download it, and you have any questions, here's the guy to contact. Here's the URL, but you can just, you know, Revit model review. It's not on the App Store for some reason. We don't use this tool because it is much more complicated to create a rule. So myself and like many other customers, when Autodesk took down their tool and put this up, we were very frustrated because this was really built for a particular client, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It works great for their requirements, in my opinion, but it's very difficult to customize it for other things. So like work sets, they have a built-in rule that lets you check for elements that are on shared level in grids. But that's it. That's all I can do with work sets. But they do have some good tools that are in there, and I do want to mention this because Well, Autodesk wanted me to mention it because it's a tool that they're funding. It's going to work similar to the Revit model review. The big differences are, and let me get out of this, is the model, the creation of rules is done outside of Revit. So if we go to Windows, I go to my Windows 10. Let's pull this up here. So I don't know why my startup thing isn't coming up. Amar, how come my start window's not coming up? Well, I couldn't even show you if I wanted to now because it's not popping up. Where you define the rules is done outside of Revit. So you create the rules outside. I don't like it because you're not sort of able to do a little pre-testing. So with Revit Model Review, I can click on that door, I can see the properties I want to check. With this particular tool, I have to do it outside of Revit, and if I want to check it, I actually have to bring it into Revit and load the model. It takes more time. But to run a check, then we just open up the checker tool, we load the model, the rule that we want to load. I'll just throw it there. Again, it's organized similar to how Revit Model Review is. I load it, I hit finish. I loaded the rule I want to run. Now I actually click the rule that I want to run and it actually processes it. Then I select what models I want to run, what I want to check it on, and then I hit run report. So I think you're kind of seeing why I don't like this particular tool because I got to click 27 times. It does take longer to run, and the displaying of the information is a little more funky. But this is, a lot of people are using this tool, so that's why I wanted to mention it. Again, it's a free tool. And then the last tool is everybody familiar with Celibri?
Yeah, IFC division.
Yeah, so Celibri is, of all my tools, and this is not a free tool, Celibri is my favorite tool. So the reason why I like it is I like to think of it as a model checking platform because it can do a lot of things. I think it does clash detection better than Navisworks, but everybody requires Navisworks, so nobody does clashing. We can do quantity takeoff in it. We can do deficiency checking, and the cool thing about this is so we're not looking at individual disciplines. I can check Sean's model. Does that column have a foundation? Is it just floating in there? Do I have a beam just floating in space? It's rule-based. So if I'm concerned about egress, I can actually see how far is this room from my nearest exit. Yeah, I mean, I can literally do how far is this room from if I wanted to, how far is this room from my nearest pencil sharpener? So I can do program studies. I know, I mean, it sounds like a joke, but a lot of things, it's how far am I to a bathroom? How far am I to an exit? How far am I to a drinking fountain? These are all so I can do that with it.
Rule creation is easy.
Yes, this is more complicated. This is not for the general BIM authoring team. This is for the BIM manager who wants to deep dive. It does allow you to do reports, but it's rule-based. So, I worked on a project recently, U.S. State Department. So for them, they're concerned about ceiling heights because they want to make sure that the ceilings are a certain height so somebody can't, stick a gun up in the ceiling tile, because Americans, we're paranoid. We're paranoid about everything. I can admit it. They want to make sure nobody can hide something in the ceiling, like a ceiling tile, and then somebody else later can come back and pick it up. So for them, literally checking the heights of ceilings is a very critical thing. So this is rule-based. The learning curve is a lot steeper, but this isn't just checking parameters is my, and I wouldn't use Celibri to check, am I following naming conventions? But do I want to make sure that I have correct clearances for doors, windows, etc.? We do it with Celibri.
Regarding clash detection, what's the difference between this one and Navisworks? Which is better?
I personally like this one better myself because Navisworks, we have the whole model, We hit the clash detection button, and I see all the clashes in that particular model. How, when we run coordination meetings for clients, we're not looking at maybe the whole model at one time. I mean, we're concerned about the whole model, but if we're in a coordination meeting, we'll want to look at just one particular area. So with Celibri, I have the ability to kind of, if you will, take a 3D box and just focus what I want to look at. So,
Limit the clash detection for a certain area?
not limit it, but show just those clashes in a particular area. So it allows us, if you think of like Revit and you're creating like a 3D box where we can drag and pull just the area that we're going to see, we can do something very similar with Navisworks. So everybody uses Navisworks though, so that's, yeah. But my preference is to use Celibri, because I think it's more powerful. But the big drawback to this tool, and it is a huge drawback, it's IFC and DWG. So there's no publishing from Revit. And, you know, the bad thing is I don't care if it's, and everybody has an issue with IFC, whether I create that IFC file from Graphisoft, from Autodesk, any of the Autodesk products, we're going to get different results. So.
That's the only reason that we are not very much inclined for Celibri, because it creates lots of issues while you are exporting it, and even if you are successful in exporting to IFC, then it shows lots of problems that certain geometries are missing, they are not in right shape, so it's very, very hard.
That's why I export to DWG. I know it's completely opposite, because it's, you know, BIM is not DWG, and we do lose parameter data, but for the most part, when I'm using Celibri, I'm not checking parameter data. You know, I'm looking at the geometry. So this is my geometry tool, if you will. The other tools are my parameter tools.
Well, there's another problem too, that when you run clash detection, you can't take the views inside Revit or any other platform.
Correct.
You have to deal with Celibri, and this is a big pushback for this.
Yep.
What do you mean when you're saying DWG? You are exporting 3D geometry in DWG?
Yes.
And
And-
ignoring the data part?
Yep.
It's fucking with geometry.
Yeah. I mean, you get some of the data comes across in the DWG, but it's not like an IFC file. But I'm looking at the geometry, and I know if I use Revit and create an IFC file, my geometry is going to get a little, I may lose some geometry, it may not be accurate, and I get a better result with
For
DWG.
example, if you do the clash test with DWG file, then how does it show that where the location of the clash is, if the data is not coming with the
Oh, you get basic information when your settings that you have set up for creating a DWG file, but I'm not going to get wall function, I'm not going to get that kind of stuff.
But it will show you the grades and level and all those things.
Yep, show me all that.
Yeah, that's enough. Oh, clash test, you have to identify where it is.
Sometimes it's enough, but because typically, like when we're doing clash detection, a clash detection, a 1 hour clash detection meeting could be focused on one trunk line of ductwork. We're literally looking at one piece of ductwork, but it could be 100 clashes. So we're not looking at the entire building. So I want to focus people's attention, because if you're in a coordination meeting, we've probably all been in them, and you know, we're talking about HVAC and structural. The fire protection guy's kind of losing a little interest. He's going to sleep. He's doing emails, he's doing something else, but we got to keep everybody focused, because eventually we are coming to the fire protection guy. So I just kind of like to narrow the scope so people, you know, there's a saying, you know, you don't eat an elephant in one swallow, you know, it's one bite at a time. So I like to kind of keep things a little more narrowly focused, and with Celibri I can do that. And it makes it easier if you're going to spin around the model, you don't have a large particular building.
Quantification with DWG, and then deficiency checking, and then model for design validation, all those type of things can do
With DWG? Yep. Yeah, when they added the DWG capability, that was like a game changer. I wish they would have the RVT publishing capabilities, but there is, I think there's, the guy who used to own Navisworks in the US, he sold it to Autodesk, obviously. He joined Celibri, and I think they had a little bit of a falling out. So I think that's the reason why they don't support. This was the first year at Autodesk University where Celibri, and his name is Jonathan Windy, had a Celibri booth, because Jonathan runs a couple other companies, Orange Technologies, and they make some AutoCAD vertical software. And so they had their Orange Technology booth right here, and then Celibri was a little platform that he snuck in. So this is the first year that they had their own booth. So.
They didn't have support in the Middle East.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting because I talked to Jonathan about that because I was going to put who do you contact, and their support all comes out of the, I don't know, Netherlands or wherever they're located. So they don't have so that's why you don't see point of contact, because there is no local point of contact. So, which can be a problem. So, any questions?
So which one is your favorite,
Of all the tools?
apart from Celibri?
I would say that my current favorite is, where are the tools listed here?
Autodesk?
Not Autodesk. And I'm a consultant to them, so. So that's a very interesting question. Like today, my business would be radically different if I didn't have Assemble, because that is our data management platform. We don't use Revit to Excel. We use Assemble because we need to have the entire project team involved. So I can't live without that. But in terms of automating model checking, I think this is currently today number one. I think when this product is actually productized and it's out of alpha, and it's not beta, I mean, it's a real project, which is probably third quarter, that is probably going to be my favorite tool. She was the contractor and I was the designer, and you know, she knew what was going on our side of the fence. And it was just frustrating because, you know, we couldn't, you know, she couldn't be a part of that process because we were, you know, I'm over here and she's over here. She wanted to help, but just the way things were organized, you know, it was, I mean, Aideen, you can comment on that, but with a tool like this, everything's out and open. And so that, you know, that makes, I think, a more collaborative environment.
So from consultant perspective, you were saying Assemble is good for your FMS. From consultant perspective, Autodesk Revit model Revit is your,
A design consultant?
yeah.
Well, I think it would still be the same. The reason why I like Assemble again is, I'll pick on Dawn. She might not be a heavy Revit user, but she may want to be able to go into the model and assign finish information. She may want to change room names. She may want to change mark numbers because Ollie is too buried and Sean went to the pub. So, right? So that gives non-Revit users the ability to start interacting with the model and editing data. So I think if I was a design consultant, this would be number one, and this would be number two, until this comes out, until Bim Standards. But again, I like the collaborative environment. I think when people work together, even though we all have different interests, I think it works much better. Because, you know, Aideen, in my past example, she could say, I want this, I got to have it this way. You know, we could say, well, look, we're working on this. We can show you our progress, rather than us saying, yes, okay. And then next week, when am I going to get this fixed? It's on the list. When am I going to get this fixed? So she can see progress, they can understand. Because ultimately, Aideen had to report to the owner. Because, you know, one of the three companies that was representing the owner was yelling at her, why isn't this getting fixed? And so I think when you lift the curtain and everybody can see what everybody's doing, it's a better environment. My opinion. Anybody else? Well, I appreciate your time, and again, if you go to our company website, we'll have the, wherever it is, Davis Consulting Service. It's my wife's company, so I don't know.
The slides there?
Yeah, we'll get a week, we'll have the slides there. we'll have the Revit model review information up there as well. So